Hello and welcome to another edition of Gotham Sound Television GSTV. I'm Nick Houston here with Glenn Sanders from Zaxcom. Glenn, thanks for being here.
Hey, Nick, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So you brought some new stuff, some new.
I did. These are some things that we showed at NAB, and we are now delivering these things. And I wanted to, briefly spend a little time talking about what makes them special and, why we're so happy to have them available.
So let's talk first about that handheld microphone that you have. So that is, at time of filming, it's shipping but not officially announced. But by the time you're watching this, this will be readily available online and wherever you purchase your favorite Zaxcom wireless, hopefully Gotham Sound. So tell us.
Okay, so what we have here is our handheld. We've had handhelds in the past, and basically we wanted to update the handheld, and we hadn't had it available for a while, and spent a lot of time making sure that any issues that we had in the past were resolved, and this more than meets that. It's really terrific. So it's a great size. It's very much like other handhelds from professional manufacturers. The big thing about this is that it has an XLR on the end. So this transmits RF without an external antenna. The antenna is built into it. So you're not going to have something on camera that has something sticking out the end.
The nub, yeah.
The nub. There's no nubs.
Yep.
Nub free.
Okay.
If you put an XLR on it, of course, it'll look like a wired mic with an XLR. And that's really good for a lot of reasons. I mean, especially today, there are venues that demand that you not use wireless in certain places and areas, especially frequency coordinated events. So if you're able to use the wireless, you can do it. And then if you go into some area where you can't, you can just plug that XLR in. You don't have to do anything but plug it in. You don't have to disable the transmitter unless you want to. You do have to have the power on for the XLR to work.
So it does need battery power. It's not like it'll be phantom powered directly to the capsule.
That is correct. Yeah, it's got to have its own internal power on, and you can turn off the transmitter at that point, but you must have the power on. One of the interesting parts about it is that it is a balanced output, and it's fed from the circuit. So it really drives the line really nicely.
Speaking of line, is that a mic level output or a line level output?
It's actually a mic level output. Yeah, we could have gone with something line level, but because it is made to really replace a standard mic like an SM58 or whatever mic you have, which would be a dynamic mic. That's what it really is there to replace, dynamic mics. But when it comes to the transmission, I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal in audio quality. It's super quiet, which is all good. The frequency range on this, I think people will be happy to hear, is 470 to 696. Or 698. Anyway.
Oh, wow. So all the legal frequencies
all the
below
legal
700.
frequencies and some illegal frequencies, depending upon where you are. The American version, of course, we limit those frequencies that you're not supposed to be on. The international version, we will enable, pretty much whatever we can for that market. But it is very, very good frequency-wise. Runs for at least 10 hours on a... I think it's, an 18... I forget what these are called, but...
vape batteries, I believe?
You can call it a vape battery. Or if you have a Tesla, you've got about 1,800 of them or so.
It's a lot of vapes in a Tesla.
There are. So it runs off that battery for, roughly 10 hours. I mean, it'll actually probably go longer than that. But, needless to say, you're going to get a full day out of that.
And what's the output power for that?
This is 50 milliwatts.
Okay.
And we've had this with one of our customers on a golf course who's been like 100 plus yards away. And the range on it is truly phenomenal. There's no way to block the RF. You can't grab it in any one location and block the RF.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to radiate fantastic no matter where you're grabbing onto it. And of course, you can put a regular flag on it if you're on, with some network that wants to see a flag on the mic.
Mm-hmm.
And it uses standard Shure mic capsules.
Yep.
Or any of the multitude of capsules that are available online.
Right. So Shure, DPA, Audio Technica, they all follow the same protocol.
Yeah, as long as it's mechanically there, and microphones that I believe the supply voltage is like 7 volts.
Mm-hmm.
It's got never clip. You're not going to clip it. It's really pretty tremendous in all aspects. Let's not forget that it has internal recording.
Mm-hmm.
So that's there as well. It's really super solid. I mean, there's nothing that can move or make noise in it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a little button here, which is hidden. I don't think you can easily see it. But that button would be a push to talk or push to mute if it were activated.
It's programmable in the menu.
It is definitely programmable in the menu. So for basic wireless applications, obviously, it'll do that. But for a lot of applications where you're trying to do something wired and wireless, I don't want to use the term only game in town, but it fits. It's the only game in town. And I'm very proud of that. It was very difficult to get that to function well without interference from the wireless transmitter, because you want to make sure that the audio coming out hardwired is as pristine and low noise as possible. And this accomplishes that very, very nicely.
So since it is transmitting at 470, or all the way down to 470,
yes.
What Zaxcom receiver functions down there? Or is there a firmware update coming to allow other Zaxcom receivers to receive
Right.
there?
Well, we certainly have products in the works. The first receiver that we'll have that goes down to 470 will be what we showed at NAB called the DCI-RX. And then there's other things in the works that I can't speak about at the moment.
Well, it's great to have a handheld to round out the line, because there are super small transmitters, there are AA powered transmitters, there are flexible transmitters, there are super long battery life transmitters, there are plug-on transmitters, and now there's a handheld. So it's really a complete.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want.
I'm hungry. Anything else you want to say about the handheld before we move on to VHF?
I think that's about it. Again, a little too long in coming out, but better that we do it right and have something that we can be proud of long term. I know one thing. We're not going to be redesigning this anytime soon. So, no, I think it's a terrific product. I think you'll find that this guy is super capable and super high quality.
Yes, absolutely. And I will also mention that we will have at least one in our rental department available for rent or for demo for people interested in trying it out
you'll
or
have
using
more
it.
than that.
Well, at least one, but we have one as of today that will be going out on its flagship rental.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, well, let's move on. The VTX and the VRX, part of the Zaxcom VHF system, and which is not new, but it is exciting. So let's get into that.
Well, there are very new aspects.
Perfect.
Okay, so I wanted to bring this today because I believe we have talked about this before, but it was not finished. Now it is finished. There was a big need from our customer base to have an inexpensive digital IFB. And, I think when we first brought it out, we brought it out in FM mode. We talked about the compatibility with Comtech transmitters and the ability to use it side by side with Comtech receivers so that you're able to effectively ease into the system. So you're not going to be an all or nothing kind of deal, which I think, especially in these times, is kind of a deal breaker for a lot of people.
Right.
If you've got 20 IFBs, you're not going to want to go out and spend $10,000 on all these receivers to replace what you have.
Right.
So there's a lot of things about this that are groundbreaking. Hopefully we don't break it too badly.
So what is complete now about the system?
The digital transmission is done. Okay. So we showed this at NAB. We did walk tests. We let people listen to it. And we covered the whole convention hall, which was many, many football fields inside.
And RF was a nightmare in there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got, literally, like 10,000 pieces of electronic equipment in this room, and you're trying to work, a wireless transmission system among that. And it was just amazing in terms of how it worked. I know we've talked about this in the past, but it is based on something called direct conversion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a traditional receiver, which would be a super heterodyne receiver. So there's no intermediate frequencies. So there's no way to have interference on those intermediate frequencies. There's no what we call image frequency that can cause a lot of problems, especially if there's a transmitter on the image frequency. So we're able to not have that as a factor. So the ability to receive the transmitter basically is fantastic because it's only listening on the one frequency that it's tuned to. So that is a huge thing. No one has a direct conversion IFB receiver that I know of. And, it's something that we worked very hard to, effectively design ourselves. It's our own electrical design. It's not a chip that we buy off the shelf because, frankly, all the chips that you buy off the shelf cost like $200 and would allow operation for maybe 2 hours with the thing getting super hot. This will run over 11 hours on 2 rechargeable batteries. So that's all really good. But as far as the digital modulation goes, what we had to do is we had to make it so that, not being a diversity receiver, and it's not, because it uses the headphone as the antenna.
Interesting.
And there's only one headphone. Well, it's VHF.
Right.
So, VHF antennas tend to be longer antennas. You would need at least like 12 inches worth of headphone cable for the antenna to even, function the way it should function. Okay. Of course, most headphones are double or triple that, and that's all fine. That's what we call a long wire antenna in terms of this kind of thing. But the headphone makes a great antenna, and this is not new. Comtex have done that forever. That's the antenna. When you're in VHF, to quote somebody, it's what you do.
Right.
So that's what we did. It is not a diversity thing. So what we had to do was we had to make digital transmission work well without diversity. And that was not a simple task. For a while we thought that, possibly we wouldn't be able to make it work because you really need to lock onto that signal and not let go of it and be very tolerant of reflections and low signal situations. And we accomplished all of that. The interesting thing is, unlike FM, where when FM signal gets iffy, you hear noise, on this you either don't hear anything because the digital dropout compensator makes up a little bit of audio to put in where the dropout is, or the squelch system, and I don't want to call it a squelch system because it's a digital system, will very, very gracefully fade that signal out and bring it back. So unlike FM systems where if your FM transmitter goes away, then your receiver doesn't understand if it's receiving a signal that is coming from the intended transmitter or it's just noise. So that's why on set you can have these big static bursts. Right. Exactly. That's impossible with this. Can't happen in digital mode. Could happen in FM mode.
Sure.
But the digital mode is what people should be using. And the audio quality in digital mode is far superior to FM mode. I mean, when people A/B these against a, traditional Comtech receiver, there's no contest that these sound amazingly better than just the typical FM receiver. So that's a great thing. But when you go to digital, it's a whole new thing. But the important thing about this kind of thing is there's a big difference in IFBs. If you look at IFB, especially with what is coming out with some of these WMAS systems, this has a list price of $500.
Sure.
if you're going to have, let's take a random number, 20 of these on set, and you look at them for 20 of these things, okay, you're talking $10,000. Not an insignificant amount of money, but when you compare them to WMAS products that are like $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 per receiver, that's basically, just not going to be practical from an economic standpoint. And then, of course, when you think about replacing them when they, take an unexpected swim in the circular pool. I hope you like that. I just made that up.
Okay.
So anyway, when they take a swim and, they end up having to be replaced, sure, production can often pay for it, but, you're replacing a $500 unit with a $500 unit.
Right.
So that's all good. And especially, as you lose the, Comtech style receivers, there's no reason to replace it with a Comtech receiver. So at least you're replacing it with something that is pretty much in the same ballpark price-wise. So IFBs need very much to be, affordable.
Yeah.
And, to Comtech's credit, they're a wonderful company. They provide a good service. But, this is the next thing. And we needed to make sure that we were, price-wise competitive, feature-wise very advanced. And frankly, when it comes to, again, a lot of these, WMAS systems that are proposed and coming out, that are saying, okay, we've got great digital quality, we've got great range. With this, you've got a portable system. This can go in a sound bag, and we have a board that goes in our Nova. But, this kind of thing, you can use this in a bag. You can use it on a cart. It's got the flexibility. It's got the price point. And more importantly, it's on the right frequency band.
Sure.
It's kind of an interesting way to put it, to think that VHF, which people have been using, VHF IFBs for years. And why do they do it? Because it's not taking up UHF frequencies, which is great because you don't want to have a high power transmitter on your sound card sitting next to your UHF receivers, all in that UHF band.
Potentially, breaking the front end of your talent receivers.
Well,
flooding.
exactly. Yeah. So that's really important on a cart, but almost more importantly in a sound bag, you've got UHF receivers sitting less than a foot from the IFB transmitter.
Yep.
And that gets very difficult. You need sometimes filters, which we make those filters. Other people make those filters. You are transmitting on VHF, you're receiving on UHF, and there's no interaction between the two. So it really simplifies everything. So staying on VHF was the right thing to do. Of course, we make UHF IFBs. We make a 2.4 gigahertz IFB. We've been there. We've done that. We'll continue to do it. The UHF IFBs are great because they can receive our wireless transmitters directly. These don't because, again, they're on VHF. Our wireless is on UHF. So there's a place for UHF IFB, especially if it can receive talent transmitters, which, I know other manufacturers' units can't do that to a great extent. We've always allowed that because I think it makes for a better system. There's people that want to use these as camera links. You can use it as a camera link. It's not designed to be a camera link, but will people use it that way? Yeah, they'll use it that way.
Right. People are using Comtech receivers as camera links.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah, because it's scratch track, basically. And if for some reason you lose your primary audio recording, at least you've got something.
Or something to sync to. You mentioned WiMAS.
Yes.
So the idea of having, like WiMAS, one of the systems out there, right, they tout that you can have 16 channels of isolated IFB. Is there a theoretical limit in VHF with your transmitter of how many transmit signals you can have?
Well, when you say theoretical limit, I think there's a practical limit.
Practical limit, great.
Yeah, because our frequency range is 192 to 217 megahertz.
Okay.
Okay, that's the tuning range. We can go outside of that in other countries.
Sure.
But that's the American tuning range. That's TV channels 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Okay.
So generally speaking, you'd want to operate on some frequency that's not on an active TV channel. But then you've got 216 megahertz, which nobody is on. You know, that's where Comtechs are. We can be there. Although when we're in that 216 megahertz, you've got to be FM. Okay, that's what the FCC regulation is. Outside of 216, you can be in digital mode. So that's where we are, and the theoretical limit is just how many channels you can squeeze in.
Right.
Now, these have a bandwidth of 64 kilohertz. Now, when you compare that to digital wireless, many digital wireless microphones operate within a 200 kilohertz span. You know, that's the legal limit of wireless microphones. So with 64 kilohertz, you can get a lot of these things in a 6 megahertz TV channel. You could probably get easily 20 of them in a single TV channel.
So it is as many, if not significantly more than what is currently offered using WiMAS.
That's right. And the thing about it is you're not dealing with the kind of limitations that WMAS has. It has limitations of you're not allowed 50 milliwatts per transmitter.
Right.
You're allowed 50 milliwatts for all the transmitters.
Total. And you need the 6 megahertz chunk.
And you need the 6 megahertz chunk. I mean, different
or whatever the chunk is, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some manufacturers force you to use the whole thing and some don't. So with this, with our transmitter, you have 50 milliwatts for every single channel. So if you're transmitting to your crew, you've got 50 milliwatts. If you want to start taking a WMAS system and have a couple channels, I mean, you might be down to 10 milliwatts per channel. With us, because we have separate transmitters, it's up to 50 milliwatts. And, you know, I didn't bring it today because it's still in development, but we do have a 4-channel rack mount transmitter that will be available as well. So, you know, you're not going to be running around with an infinite number of small boxes.
So in a news station or something like that.
Exactly. News station. I mean, maybe a fixed rack mount installation where you've got, you know, maybe in some theater, some museum, you know, wherever you need assisted listening, you can do it. I mean, on set, you're going to have a situation where you might say, okay, I've got to have a channel for my crew. I have to have a channel for the director, producer, script supervisor. So you would potentially have multiple channels. The good news is, again, you've got the full power capability per channel on our system.
Yeah.
So with the VRX, I want to mention that you are able to change back and forth between FM mode and digital mode seamlessly, which is a cool thing because you never know. You might have a Zaxcom transmitter and a Comtech transmitter, and then you can just press a button to go back and forth. So that was an important design feature of this. So basically, just to wrap it up, hopefully this is the future of IFB. And, you know, again, we have this transmitter, which we call the VTX. And there's a version of this that is inside of Nova. It's an option to Nova. So if you have a sound bag, you can have all your recording, wireless receivers, IFB transmitter, all of it within the Nova. So literally a sound bag would be the Nova and a battery and the bag, and that's it, which, you know, is fantastic because people are still running around with huge, heavy sound bags, and, you know, we need to stop the insanity. So
Save people's backs.
Save people's backs. So really, that's the overview at this time. But I'm, you know, like I say, I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy the products are out, and we certainly have a lot more on the way. And you know, it's pretty exciting times, and we, you know, I hope that, you know, there's more work for everyone so that they can, you know, certainly stay in the industry and look to us manufacturers to make their jobs easier and better and more productive.
Yeah, great. And I think, you know, well, a couple of things. We have both the VTX and VRXs available in our rental department. We're adding more VRXs as needed, and the VTX is available for demo. So if people are interested in checking that out and doing a comparison, please give us a call. And, Glenn, you're very accessible. And I just have to say that, as somebody, as a vendor, but also as just a member of the sound community, you're generally accessible and listen. So if you have comments for Glenn, you can send them to us. We'll get them to him. But you're on Facebook and
Sure.
you listen.
We always want to know what everyone has to say about what we do, whether we're doing things right, wrong. There's only so many hours in the day. I know people want us to make changes to older products and what have you. And we really try to look at everything and balance it out and do everything that we can do for the customers.
Yeah, I get that. All right, Glenn, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you coming all the way from Jersey.
Nick, thank you. It's always great to be here.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone watching.
Yeah. So, thank you for watching. Thank you to our tech team, Nate and Peter, and especially our director, Jared M. Silver, frightfully important. For this video and more, you can go to gothamsound.tv. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and X and Blue Sky, I think it's called. But any number of social medias that are hopefully listed on your screen right now. And if you want to get in contact with us, call us or email us at info@gothamsound.com. Thank you again for watching.